Okay, so Rachel Harris is the roadside development supervisor, and she's been in that position for 1 year. She graduated from Iowa State with degrees in horticulture and landscape architecture. She's been a licensed landscape architect since 2009 and has worked on a variety of federal, state, and local and private projects prior to coming to the DOT. She has worked as a licensed landscape architect in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Washington State, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just prior to coming to the DOT, she worked as a landscape architect at a small engineering company in Des Moines. Please welcome Rachel Harris from the Iowa DOT.
Thanks, Laura. And thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to present some updates from the DOT and the Roadside Development Department. Like she said, I've only been with the DOT for a year, so some of the information is new to me as well as I was researching our SEED program and the history. So I've kind of set this up as a learning adventure for everybody, a little bit of historical context, and then kind of some of what we're seeing next after that. So the Iowa DOT manages over 216,000 acres of roadside right-of-way in the state. Approximately half of that is vegetative acres. 60,000 acres, approximately, unfortunately our numbers aren't super great when it comes to that, are planted to native seed. Now done mostly through our erosion control, final erosion control projects. So after they regrade a road or build a bridge or put in a new interchange like the Johnson County 380 interchange, we come in after and try to plant as many natives as possible. Iowa legislation from 1989 requires the DOT to use an integrated approach to vegetation management. It's in the code, includes native seeding. So we started using the native prairie seed mixes in the mid-1980s. In the early 2000s, we started specifying the Iowa origin seed. And then we purchased the seed ourselves for the larger projects, the erosion control projects, and use the Iowa Eco-type seed when practicable. And we'll talk about that later, how that's kind of worked through. This is kind of information that's a little bit specific to how the DOT views native plantings. Obviously, there's a bunch of other benefits that we can all agree upon, but the first thing that we always talk about is improved safety. Native plants with their height and the way they persist in the winter help manage blowing snow on many of our highways. That's kind of the main thing. We also use it to prevent highway hypnosis. That, along with trees, differences in the landscape when you're driving. If you see pretty flowers on the side of the road, you're less likely to just zone out. It does reduce long-term maintenance, plowing, mowing, and herbicide use on all of our roadsides. Reduces soil erosion, removes sediments from stormwater, screening and the aesthetic beauty of roadsides, which we all shoot for. And then we also provide habitat for native pollinators and wildlife through the connected corridor habitat. And I think that with the amount of acres that the Iowa DOT has, and then add to that all of the county acres alongside roads, it's substantial in the state. So, yeah.
Zoom.
Oh.
I wonder if we can get that out of your slides. There you go.
Thank you. So all of our pictures are pictures that were taken along the side of Iowa roads that we kind of just have in our stock. Some of them were taken by roadside development staff. So a little bit of the history of the native seed purchase, and I apologize, the numbers aren't, we have most of the numbers, some of them I just couldn't find, and I'll try my best to get better information next year. And I have information going back to 2015, but I made this chart, bar chart, because I felt like it kind of showed how the amount that we've awarded per fiscal year has varied from year to year. We have seen that decline in the last couple of years. I am not exactly sure why, but I think part of that is due to the fact that some of our EO1 final erosion control plants have actually been canceled in the last, at least since I've been here. And I think that's because contractors are seeding and then our inspectors are calling it done. So that's something that I'm planning on focusing on as I move forward in my career at the DOT, to get that number back up to pre-2000 levels. I think COVID had an impact as well, but I'm looking more into that and kind of trying to figure out how we can make those numbers a little bit bigger. You can see here I think the Bureau of Design in my department, we design most of the EO1 projects. Consultants do a fair amount as well, but I think at this point we're doing most of them for all the road teams and the bridge teams. So the bidders per year, 2015 we had 5, then 8, then 8. For some reason 2018 is a black hole where all the DOT data is missing. And then 7, 5, 2, 2, and 3 in 2023. So looks like 2016 we did almost 1.5 million. And then 2023, we had $71,000 worth of native seed. So here's another kind of interesting chart that I put together. It doesn't necessarily align with the cost because costs obviously vary every year, but the pounds have been going down as well over the last few years since 2020. So we're trying to remedy that as well. This is broken down into grasses and forbs for anyone who wants to kind of take a bigger look at it. I can distribute this to anybody who wants to kind of see the numbers. But you can see our projects let in 2015, 8 projects, 2016, 10, and then on down to 22 and 23 where we had 2 projects each year. So this year, we do have several pretty decent-sized projects that we're letting. This is an example that I kind of wanted to highlight on our end, where we're putting together the plans, not necessarily something that somebody bidding on the native seed purchase is going to see or really care about, but I thought it would be something that'd be interesting to see from our perspective. So one example, this let just late last year in Des Moines County on Highway 61 north of Burlington. Between Burlington Road and H40, for anybody who knows Des Moines County. So you can see the map here. It's kind of starts here and goes all the way down to just north of Burlington. This is the Mississippi River. And then here's the project blown up on our plan sheet going straight down. This project included about 194 total acres of native grass seeding, and then 5.6 acres of wetland grass seeding. And we work with the Location and Environment Bureau to do wetland delineation and to determine where that seed should go. So I also included the actual seed list that we have for just this project, showing the rate per acre, the acres, total pounds per mix, and the total pounds. Those are the grasses, kind of your standard. Basically the 90-10 DOT list. And then here's our FORB list for just that project. And like I said, I can distribute this to anybody who wants to see the list and do the calculations or whatever. So I want to talk a little bit about the method of award, how we award the projects for the seed purchase. We make it for all the seeds by species by line item to the lowest responsive bid after any preference as stated below, which is a little bit different. A lot of state projects, it's lowest bid, that's it. But for this, we have a preference for the source identified class yellow tag seed. So you can see there's a 20% preference over or go Iowa. So for Iowa seed over the other states other than Iowa. So you get a 20% increase. Number 2, there's a 50% preference for seed that is still a yellow tag, but certified. And then uncertified seed has a 0% preference. And then we also don't use any cultivated varieties with the exception of the Panicum virgatum Shenandoah. So multiple bidders can be awarded for each item, and we actually just, the plans or the purchasing bidder part, I don't know what it's called. It just went out to bid, the RFP, just went out to bid recently. It closes, I believe, on the 13th, and I'll have that information, but there's a virtual bid opening, and if you go to the link that I'll provide in the next, or at the last sheet, you can actually go to the virtual bid opening. So for 2024-25, our fiscal year 2024 seed purchase is approximately $153,000 to be let through purchasing. We have completed the staff action and the bid opportunity is posted. We're working to update the state of Iowa's integrated roadside vegetation management plan, and Tara, who is our Living Roadway Trust Fund coordinator, is here today, so she and I will probably be mostly working on that with help from the Tallgrass Prairie Center, of course, and Christine. We are updating our design manual. It's a design manual for the entire Iowa DOT Bureau of Design. So there is one section, it's Chapter 10, which pertains to roadside development and very specifically erosion control. A lot of it is like silt fence and straw wattles, things like that, but there's also seeding, like how we will specify where seed goes in the landscape and how we do our planning for erosion control projects. So that will be updated probably this year and maybe next year. That will not affect the seeding specification 9010, which is where the list that I provided you, mostly where that comes from. So as of right now, we're not changing that. It aligns with SUDAS, the SUDAS seating specification, so our design manual changes won't impact that specification list at all. So to kind of close, I wanted to provide some Iowa DOT resources. I'm sure a lot of you probably are really aware of this, but there may be some new people that aren't as aware of our specifications. We have the seating specifications, which provide plant lists. They provide kind of installation methods, maintenance methods, everything that you would see on a DOT plan. And then our design manual, Chapter 10 for roadside development and erosion control, is also online at iowadot.gov. And then lastly, the purchasing, the current and awarded bid opportunities, where you can actually go and look at the RFP or RFB and bid on the opportunity, is located at the Iowa DOT eBid, and I can send those links out as well. But this is the little snippet from yesterday that I took, or 2 days ago maybe. This was issued on 2/21 and it closes on 3/13. So as of today, you have 7 days left if you wanted to bid on any of the seed purchasing information this year. So that's all I have for this year. I look forward to meeting people and working with everybody and continuing the work that we've done at the DOT to put native seed in the ground. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I can answer some questions if anybody has them, and hopefully have answers.
What year was the big push? There was legislation, I think like $4 million set aside to convert a lot of the 4 lanes, starting with those. What year was that? Do you remember? Kind of doing your dates of what the projects were and stuff.
I want to say that was late 90s, early 2000s, just based on when I was in college, not to date myself, but I did do some outreach for the Highway 20 project during that time, so for a different organization, but I think that was that time. And we used to actually, my boss, who is the bureau director, we used to actually just plant natives. We used to just scorch the brome and plant natives, but there was not surprisingly, I guess, in Iowa, there was a bit of a public outcry at the time when we did that because it was seen as wasteful spending. So we don't really do that anymore, which is why we try to focus on the erosion control, the EO1 projects. But I can mention, Tara and I actually talked about it on the way up. I was going to bring up a couple of the bigger projects that we have going on right now that are going to have EO1s probably in fiscal year 25. One of them is the 380 interchange, Johnson County. And then all of 380 is being widened to 4 lanes. So we will have a bunch of seed going in that area. We have a project on Iowa 3 in Dubuque County, which is kind of a really cool road if anybody hasn't been there. It's got a lot of challenges with a lot of rock outcroppings and different sort of water issues, but that's a pretty fairly long stretch that we're going to have an EO1 project on fairly soon. So anyway.
Do you have a map or any kind of information on which roadways have been seeded with native seed and which ones are maybe better, or that'd be great?
That's a good question. Tara, do you know, is that what FHU is working on?
No, FSU is working on county inventories.
Okay.
So a statewide county inventory map. But we do have, for Iowa DOT, we do have a GIS layer that shows projects that have been seeded since, I think it was 2018. So it's not like the whole time, but it has.
The most recent ones. Cool.
It's on our public portal, roadside vegetation.
Tara's been here a lot longer than I have, so. Go ahead.
Yeah, if we have a little time, like this is digging into some of your graphs as well of the year by year. And
Sure.
I may have missed it, but something that stood out to me was you didn't talk about acres so much. It was the number of bids, number of projects, number of dollars. And maybe you have the acres data, or maybe acres aren't as relevant to how you measure things. But a lot of times when we talk about native seed, we are thinking of acres as a unit also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you want to say about that?
That's an excellent question. I think that's a really good thing to track, maybe moving forward. Historically, I got most of this information from our purchasing department, and they don't care about acres. So the information they want is the seed types, the pounds per acre. I suppose we could kind of do the calculations based on that. What I provided you, this example. This is actually what we produce in-house. I could go through projects and kind of do some calculations, but that's actually a really good thing for us to track going forward, is how many acres we're seeding every year. Because like I mentioned on one of the first slides, I estimate we have about 60,000 acres planted in natives, but I don't know the exact number, honestly. So it's not something we've done a very good job of tracking in the past. So thank you, though. I appreciate that.
Excuse me, I'm curious if you use companion or nurse or cover crops when you're doing establishment to kind of green up more quickly.
We do. I think we usually use oats as a cover crop. If you look at if you look at the 90-10 seeding specs, I think there's some winter wheat that sometimes can be used depending on the seeding time frame, but I think it's mostly oats.
You had said that you were working on getting those numbers up now that they're a little lower in terms of how much seed or what would relate to more acres in the ground. And I know that moving red tape is so hard. Is there a way that we in the room can help you do that? Send emails to representatives or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more representatives hear from people that have a stake in native seed and that production, I think the better we are. I've been contacted since I've been here by like one or two representatives that have wanted to speak about the stuff that we're doing. So yeah, absolutely. I know, I think a big part of it is just an internal DOT mechanism and how we view our erosion control projects and what we value as the final product of what we're putting out. So I've been here a year, and I'm still, the DOT I'm still learning. So that is one of the things that I have in my mind that I want to work on as far as an internal DOT employee. But yeah, whatever you guys can do, you guys are the people that can lead that discussion on a state level. So.
There are a few of us in the room who have been involved in providing seed for the Iowa DOT for many, many years. And we've seen the decline from a 40 SCAR days and 1.5 million out of these 70,000. something anyway, to you or anyone else in the DOT, to kind of give you some history of kind of where we came from, you know, between Elman and Hoxie and Shooting Star and some of the folks who have been on these projects for a long time. I feel like we could give you a lot of valuable information about why maybe there's been a decline in the amount of seed used or the number of bidders, and this is not the forum for that.
Yeah.
If you'd be interested,
Yep.
I'd be happy, I'm sure, to explain some of those things, just because so many folks are so new
Right.
at this, but there are people who can provide some of that history.
Yeah, I would greatly appreciate that. Yeah, feel free to email me or give me your card if you have it, and we can connect. For sure. Yeah, we're a relatively young team. I've been there a year. The person that's doing our erosion control plans, I think, started in 2020 now. And then, like, Tara is our senior staff member at 5 years. So there was, I know, compared to the other people in the DOT, there, you know, if you ask around the room, it's like 25 to 40 years, you know. So we are, you know, we replaced Oli, and Mark Masteller had my job previously. And they were there for a really long time. So we're still kind of getting on our feet and trying to make the program the best we can. So yeah, definitely look forward to any sort of help. Absolutely. Thank you.
The standing corn snow fence program, I understand that might not have anything to do with your desk, but it is by Iowa DOT. Is there any way that native, perennial plants could get a seat at that table as well, for instead of leaving corn, an annual crop, something that's there more permanently?
That is a good question. We do in our roadside department, and Tara is taking lots of notes for me, so I can maybe answer some of these questions a little bit better once we have a little time to kind of look into it. And I'd be happy to look into that. I know a lot of time the native corn stands are used when we don't have enough right-of-way room for our living snow fence that we utilize. So that would be, I think that would be an excellent, and honestly, I've had conversations recently where that have discussed how that program is actually not kind of working as well as it used to. People aren't to put it like plainly, people don't want to take the time to get their machine back out to harvest the rows of corn after, as farms get bigger and, commercialized or industrial. They don't want to spend the time. It's not worth their time and money. So looking for alternatives to that is definitely, I think, a good option. And we have a lot of highways. We drove up here basically from Ames this morning, and there's a lot of highways that don't have a lot of right-of-way that would be very helped by that. And I can assure you that our maintenance garages that are the ones that are out there plowing when there's 10-foot drifts, they support our Living Snow Fence program 100%. And they're the ones that actually usually request our Living Snow Fence. And to take that a step further, all of our Living Snow Fence that we're installing, we use native shrubs. And we're actually, this last year, we did a couple test plots of Living Snow Fence, kind of a little bit away from the prairie seed, but of Living Snow Fence that used DNR plants that are grown. So we're doing some research into different plants for that as well, which is kind of exciting. So it makes a huge difference on some of our roads that have a lot of drifting. So yeah, that's a great question.
And I'll just add to that, DOT is not purchasing enough right away to have established living roadway or living snow fences. And that's a problem, but there is a CRP program that can be paired with Living Roadway Trust Fund to cover the funds to establish a living snow fence outside. But it's just not, it's getting landowners to know that's out there, and if that would be something that they'd be interested in.
Well, I was mostly thinking because those farmers are paid for that corn that they're leaving standing, and if we could just, instead of pay them to have corn, cost share with them to put down native grasses for.
And I think that's where the CRP program or practice would come into play.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah, it should be CRP.
There's a lot of controversy also on how much DOT can purchase. So I think that partnership would be where we should explore.
Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.